Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Unpacked. I am Adam Pakila. It is episode number 2 of my podcast. It is raw, uncut, one camera, one person, one microphone, and today, a computer. I have a computer because I'm going to kind of go through what I've experienced as an educator during the COVID-19 situation, outbreak, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of people that are out of work. I think the closest estimate, by the way, today is April 24th. So everything, to the best of my knowledge, is current as of right now. And I think the last numbers I heard was something like 20% of the working age individuals have filed for unemployment. So essentially 20% of America that can work is not working, which is great. So I'm lucky in that I work for a public school, and I also work in homes doing ABA services for individuals with autism. And I'm actually allowed to do my services as a behavior analyst via telehealth, via Zoom meetings is what we use. So my therapist would go into the home and they would provide the direct instruction of completing the goals and objectives. And I would be able to get on video and observe them and give them feedback. Both of the client's therapists have earbuds in, wireless earbuds, so I can talk with them and not disrupt the client. I shut my video off so I don't disturb them as well. Depending upon where they are, they move the camera around and they put it in different places. Some people use an iPad, some people use a phone. It's worked really, really well. And telehealth for ABA has been emerging over the course of the past couple years, and it really took this pandemic to kind of push it into the limelight and have people and insurance providers that were previously not accepting, like Husky, Medicaid in Connecticut, they were not permitting it, but because of the pandemic, they're realizing that it might be the only option, and it's the safest option for a lot of clients. Neither of the clients that I have currently are appropriate to have telehealth be done by the therapist, so the therapist still has to physically be there. We're taking a lot of precautions when it comes to that. Both of the therapists go nowhere else. They don't have any other clients. They don't have any other people that they have to see. They are very diligent about social distancing and sheltering at home and all of that type of stuff. So I'm very, very lucky in the people that I have working these cases, and they are healthcare workers the same as nurses and doctors and emergency room technicians and janitors and people that are working in assisted living and all of those types of things. This is a medical necessity. This is a medical necessity for these individuals with autism. And in light of the fact that the schools are shut down and learning is going on from home, this is some of the only face-to-face type of instruction that they're receiving. So I am very fortunate that my income has not been affected greatly, but more than that, I'm happy that my clients can still receive a small version of the services that they were getting before. So that's good. Good news. So the point of this, again, is to kind of outline my experiences what I've gone through during this pandemic. And again, if you're new to the podcast, the point of this is to record my experiences, my opinions, and things of that nature, so that way my kids, when they get older, can kind of understand my perspective and my feelings on things. So this is, again, my experiences through the COVID-19 coronavirus disease 2019, which actually for the United States hit in 2020, from the standpoint of an educator and ABA practitioner. So I have some notes on my computer, and I want to go over kind of a timeline that I experienced with, there's going to be some facts that are put in there. There's going to be some emails that were received. There's going to be some conversation and opinions shared on my part, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go back. This is not by any means an all-encompassing view of what was happening in the United States as a whole during this time. I am not an infectious disease expert. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional in the fact of working with people that are being treated with COVID-19. But this is just starting really at the beginning of March. I'm going to start it on March 1st. So on March 1st, I received an email from my supervisor to the program that I work in within the public school system where I work. And it was kind of like a general email of wellness. It was talking about, while we continue to proceed together and hope for a healthy spring, I'm forwarding along the guidelines from the state. Further information will be coming from our district in the near future. Your help with this is much appreciated. So this is just kind of a general wellness practice follow-up email. We're still in flu season. We're coming towards the end of it, but these are the things that you should be doing. So you need to adhere to existing school health protocols for staff and students presenting who may have been exposed to a contagious disease. That's pretty standard. If you know that someone was exposed to a contagious disease, there are protocols that you need to follow for that. You need to either be self-quarantined. This is just overall in general. You do either self-quarantined, you need to limit your contact with other individuals, and so you're not showing symptoms, and you need to stay home so you don't infect other people. And working in a school system, that doesn't always happen. People come in constantly, students come in constantly that are sick, and sometimes we have to play the bad guys and send them home. And we understand that it puts a hardship on the family, but ultimately, as we've seen with this terrible pandemic, one person can infect a lot of people. Washing your hands, providing adequate soap, paper towels, and cleaning supplies, avoiding close contact with people that are sick, reminding students to cover their mouths and nose with a tissue, have custodial staff clean and disinfect frequently, touch surfaces, and strongly promote the annual flu shot for students and staff. So you can see that this is just a general wellness email. This is kind of a follow-up. These are the things that you should be doing. These are the things you should always be doing. These are the reminders that we have. Again, this is March 1st. March 3rd, the district made and distributed hand washing videos, because at this point in time, it's kind of growing in numbers. It's people are starting to become much more aware that this is an ever-increasing problem in the United States, and we can see that it's moving from the West Coast all the way over to the East Coast. It started in China, and it's kind of moving through the United States, and we're trying to get out ahead of it, and we're trying to not cause alarm and panic, but we still want people to have information. So now they've distributed hand washing videos, and they sent a distance learning survey to the staff to see what materials, what resources, what types of things that they would need so that they could be successful in the event that we had to go to a distance learning model due to this, impending pandemic. We also had it was a Tuesday, so every first Tuesday of every month, we have a department meeting after school. So after school gets out, all of the staff stay a little bit later, and we do a department meeting. This department meeting is where we filled out the survey, where we met with each other and kind of updated each other on the rumors that we have heard, the official word from the district, and it was pretty much in line with the things that were written in the emails and the other correspondence we had gotten from the state. Our district didn't really have more information that they were willing to share with us, but they were available for conversation. March 5th, so we're now in 3 days, March 1st, 2 days later, March 3rd, and then 2 days later, March 5th, the district approved staff to purchase alcohol-free sanitizers for reimbursement. Now, this was really interesting for me because everything that I had read up until this point said that alcohol-based sanitizers were the way to go. I think it's at least 60% alcohol so that you could effectively kill the virus on surfaces, your hands, whether it be alcohol-based cleaning products for hard surfaces or so on and so forth. I found it interesting that they were offering reimbursement and paying for alcohol-free, and we received numerous emails and follow-up emails and answers to questions about it needing to be alcohol-free. So if you were to go out and purchase a alcohol-based cleanser, you would not be eligible for reimbursement. I found that humorous. I already had some hand sanitizer that I barely use. Oh, full disclosure, before this type of thing happened, I am not a religious hand washer. I grew up biting my nails. I, still occasionally pick my nails by biting at them and kind of cleansing them on my teeth. I don't bite the actual nails off all the time. But I wasn't the religious hand washer. Would I wash them after going to the bathroom? Yes. Would I wash them every single time after, I would go and take a piss? No, because if I didn't have urine on my hands, I didn't feel a big need to do it, especially if I was pushing and pulling the door and I could get into it without actually using my hand. So I didn't wash my hands all the time. As soon as this started, I definitely upped my hand washing, because it wasn't necessarily to not get me sick. It was to not get other people sick, specifically my family. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, and I didn't want to get them sick. I didn't want to get my wife sick, and I didn't want to get anyone that I come in contact with on a daily basis, which is potentially a lot of people working in a community, in a school. I could come in contact with a lot of people. So I was more or less washing my hands for other people, not for myself. So that's where we are with that. So I had a lot of alcohol-based hand sanitizer, because a bottle would last me a year. Sometimes I would even buy it and it would expire before I was all out of it. So that's fine. So I was not hard up for hand sanitizers. Other people that I worked with, different story. So I just found that interesting, that it was kind of as though they were trying to make people feel better by offering them the reimbursement. Say like, hey, we're doing something, but in actuality, they really weren't doing anything. And I don't know if it was an empty gesture on purpose or if it was just overlooked, or if that was the only thing in their policy that stated that they were allowed for reimbursement. But now that new things had come out specific for this virus, they didn't have time to update their policies and protocols to account for the reimbursement of the thing that was previously not allowed. So this is going to be kind of a constant theme throughout my experience with this, is things are in place, and when the shit hits the fan, you don't have enough time to change those things. So you're kind of hamstrung by the policies and procedures that are in place because you didn't factor in this, act of God or something to that effect. So it's a very pervasive thing that was happening. And this, I'm thinking about it right now, this might be the first instance of that. It's like, we never approved alcohol-based hand sanitizers because before this, alcohol-free hand sanitizers were just as effective. Well, not with this. So in the time that it took for us to possibly change the procedure, we would have missed out on reimbursing our staff or giving them the adequate supplies, which was the first email they sent a couple days ago. So that was interesting. An email was sent with a link on March 6th. I actually did not work on March 6th. I was at a conference at Mohegan Sun, which is a casino in Connecticut. And the conversation at the conference wasn't even, it was about the conference. It was about the fact that the venue had to be changed because the health code was violated, or the taxes were violated at the previous place. It had absolutely nothing to do with the coronavirus. It had absolutely nothing to do with the impending pandemic. It was kind of business as usual. Some people were concerned about it, but I mean, at the table that I was sitting at with 4 or 5 friends that I had, one person would bring it up and they would be squelched because it'd be like, oh, it's only affecting old people, or oh, it's only affecting people with pre-existing conditions, or oh, there's not that many, like the flu is more deadly, and so on and so forth. I kept my mouth shut because I understood how exponential this was going to be. It was going to have a doubling effect. So, one person sick on Monday, well, they had 2 people are sick on Tuesday, but then 4 people are sick, and then 16 people are sick, and it just constantly exponentially grows. So the fact that it was low now and there were more people that were dying of the flu now, yeah, but that rate is going to increase, whereas the rate for the flu is pretty consistent after that strain of flu hits. Like everybody, it's a pretty consistent rate for that year, but the coronavirus was a completely different story. So there was a email sent, and I'm going to pull it up right now, that was from the state. So the district that I worked for sent out an email that was from the state, and it was just general information on the novel coronavirus for K-12 schools. So this is a specific email sent out by the state, a specific memo related for our schools specifically. A lot of use of the word specific there. But this is the first email that we got like this, about coronavirus, addressing it as a name. and then also as it pertains to schools in the state of Connecticut. So there's links to follow the CDC, there's links for the Department of Public Health. Guidance is based on a bunch of different things. And then there's some Q&As. What are coronaviruses? How serious is the virus? Then what are the range of symptoms? How does the virus spread? What is the incubation period? May appear between 2 and 14 days after exposure. That's awesome. So you could be asymptomatic and still pass it on to people. Fantastic. Georgia governor didn't know that apparently, but Connecticut did. That's very intelligent on their part. Then it's talking about persons returning from China. What happens when people have been to China return to the United States by air travel? It's mostly about a frequently asked questions, things that they were addressing behind the scenes, or other people had been addressing, but now they're formally putting it into an email or a document and sending it out to schools, again, as it pertains specifically to schools. So that's the first that we actually heard, March 6th. So from March 1st, where we're like, hey, these are general health practices, remember them, to March 6th, like, this is coronavirus in the state of Connecticut, specific for schools. March 10th, we had a meeting from 1 to 3 talking about plans for the rest of the week to be outlined in an email later that day. So the 6th was a Friday, then it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I think was the 10th, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, so Tuesday. It was, again, another meeting that we had. We had been having meetings amongst the certified staff, the teachers, the behavior analyst, myself, social worker, speech and language pathologist. We'd been having meetings, and our updates would be updated after that meeting. And it was a constant plan and then replan and then replan the replan and then replan the replan. And it was constantly playing catch up. We never got ahead of this. And again, that's another thing that I noticed during this entire process is we can never get ahead of it. Nothing we did would help us get ahead of it. We couldn't get ahead of the shutdown. We couldn't get ahead of the information being distributed. We couldn't get ahead of anything. And my supervisor said it perfectly. She said, there are no right answers right now. We're in an unprecedented situation, in uncharted waters, so there are no right answers. We're going to make mistakes. So sometimes we would make a decision, and that decision was great in the moment, and then we get new information, or something would exacerbatedly change, and we'd have to alter that plan that we just spent sometimes 3 hours, 2.5 hours planning. And the next day it's kaput and we have to change something else. And it's not because we didn't have the most up-to-date information. It's because in the time that we were planning, things were changing so quickly that the information was completely outdated. So we had to go back to the drawing board all over again. So it was just meeting after meeting after meeting. And it was crazy. On March 10th, we came up with a plan to pull back our students from the community. I work in a transition program where we do not have a building. We do not have a physical location that our students all are in like a traditional school. If you could look at the town that I work in, bird's eye view, if you were to put a drone straight up in the middle of town and look down and we were all highlighted like radioactive isotopes, you would see people moving all about the town. You would see moving this way, moving that way. Some people would be at a gym. Some people would be at a job site. Some people would be on a leisure outing. Some people would be doing public transportation. So it would be all over the place. That's our program. So we had to, at the end of that meeting, we came up with a plan. And our plan was effective next week. So the 16th, which would be that Monday, effective that Monday, all of our students would be in a building. The community program would be done, kaput, as we knew it, and we would all be back in a building. What did that mean? Well, we couldn't go to our job sites. We couldn't go to our employment opportunities. They weren't getting paid by the employers, by the job sites. It was paid by a stipend. They were volunteers, almost like an internship, but we weren't able to go, regardless of whether they're open or not. I mean, if they were closed, some of them were already closed. Some of our students work for local universities, and they were closed, so they couldn't go to work anyway. Other places were open, but we were not able to send them because the district policy was that we were going to pull all students back. There were going to be no field trips. There were going to be no excursions. There were going to be no sporting events. There were going to be none of that stuff. So everyone got pulled back. So we were having that start as of Monday the 16th. So on Tuesday the 10th, Monday the 16th. For some of our more resistant to change students, we were going to slow them into that process. So the transition, how it works in Connecticut is or how it works in my district is you do your high school career, you go through your elementary and your middle school and then your high school career. And when you graduate, when you would normally graduate, you don't actually get your diploma. It's withheld from you and you get it when you exit the program, because in the state of Connecticut, people are eligible for special education services up to and including their 21st birthday year. So if they were to take their diploma physically when they were to graduate high school, they would no longer get any services from the town or from the city in the state of Connecticut. So what they do is they go through a celebration. They still walk with their class. They still get the cap and the gown. They still get a document, but it's kind of blank. It's like a placeholder. It's an IOU 1 diploma. Or maybe not. Maybe they just get a certificate of completion, depending upon their requirements being met or not met for credits. So what does that mean for our students? That means that they haven't been in their school since they graduated after their senior year. But now we're saying that they have to go back. So imagine if you were a freshman in college and your college closed and you had to still maintain your college credits, but you had to do it by going back to your high school. That would be a little bit weird for some people. So we wanted to have those students that were a little bit more resistant to change slowed into that process. So we were saying, okay, Thursday, we're going to bring them over to their home schools. And we're going to figure out what their day is going to look like. We're going to put them, where are we going to have space? This is in 4 days and all of our schools are shore up with space. We don't really have a lot of space. So much so that 4 people are sharing an office 10 by 10. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So where are we going to put these 15 students, 11 paras, and 6 certified staff? I don't know. We don't know. So we've got to figure that out as well. So again, a lot of questions come from these meetings with not necessarily a lot of answers, and we don't actually have the time to get these answers. But we're still planning. We're still planning to get the students into the school, and then we'll kind of figure it out as we go along. So we have these students that are, again, resistant to change. They're a little bit more rigid. So we say, okay, we've got these heavy hitters, as you would, identified that need a little bit more support. We're going to get them into the buildings on Thursday. On Friday, they're going to be almost fully in the building. So that way Monday comes, they're in the building and it's as seamless a transition as we can do. For the ones that are a little bit more loosey-goosey, a little bit less rigid, we'll probably bring them over on Friday so they can see things, and then on Monday we'll put them in fully. Okay, that worked. That sounds like a good plan. That didn't happen. After that meeting at 3:15, when it ended, we got an email about how to incorporate precautions and to announce that there was a half day now on Friday. So remember I talked about all those plans that we would make and then we'd have to readjust those plans? We had planned for a full day on Friday. We now had half a day on Friday. We had half a day on Friday, and it was right after this email that in my mind, I had said it in passing, but it was in my mind that I believed that there was no way we were making it to Monday. There was absolutely no way that we were going to make it to Monday. We were going to be locked down as a school, no one in or out, everyone doing distance learning from home by Monday. And to the best of my knowledge, it was not officially announced at this point in time in that email. What was announced was the state had canceled the remainder of winter sports seasons, including tournament games and competitions, basketball, track and field, wrestling, all of those things that had not concluded at this point in time. I think actually wrestling had, but basketball specifically, done. So those seniors that were looking forward to their championship game and their tournament, not going to happen. You work for this in your entire high school career and now you're not going to get it. Oh, man, I can't imagine what those kids felt like. That was nail number one in the coffin of their senior year. I can't imagine what that felt like. I played football and ran track in high school, and I can't imagine what it would feel like if I couldn't play my last game or run my last race. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to nationals in both my senior year winter indoor season and my senior year outdoor season. And I had the longest season possible, and it still felt too short. I still would have loved another day. So at this point in time, we're told that we have a half day so we can prepare for distance learning and, the impending, pandemic and how it's going to affect the schools. The next day, March 11th, we have a meeting, discussion of how the rest of the week will go, having students in buildings starting Friday now, because now we know that they have to be in the building starting Friday, not starting Monday. So that was another part of that email. So we had planned on them being slow played so that they were going to be in a building starting on Monday. Now they're going to be in a building starting Friday because now it's a half day, so we have less time to prepare. March 12th, meeting at central office. This was a shit show. It was an absolute shit show. By this point in time, we've had 4 days. We've had 6 days since that email that went out from the state. Again, the way that this pandemic moved, that is a lifetime of information that we had to digest. And what was discussed was all of the questions we had centered around what would happen if we were to go to a distance learning model for our students who are more of the complicated learners. What would that look like for them? A lot of them have never accessed a computer because they don't have the intellectual ability to do so at this point in time in their lives. Many of them have interfering behaviors that make distance learning and learning electronically extremely challenging for them. Some of them can't read or write. Some of them can't use a keyboard. Some of them never used a mouse or a trackpad. What is that going to look like for these students? These are all questions that we had, and we're going to get the answers in this meeting. What we were told was, I don't even know the best way to say it. The district was doing the best that they could. Okay? I have the utmost faith that they had our best interests at heart and the interests of our students. But they're a school district, and ultimately they're responsible for the education of students and maintaining a budget. Just be completely honest. They wanted to provide the education for the students so that way they didn't get sued for not providing the education and therefore it affect the bottom line in the budget. This is my opinion. No one told me this. This is my opinion. I'm reading between the lines. So this meeting that we had on March 12th, there were 2 meetings. One was right after high school got out, because high school gets out earlier, and then the other one was after the middle schools got out, and middle schools and elementary schools who get out a little bit later. So we had about an hour to an hour and a half after the high schools got out until the second meeting took place so that the middle and elementary school professionals could be there. We're all in a very close room. There were like 20 people. I was standing on a milk crate over somebody else. It was crazy. Unbeknownst to us, a select group of people were in a meeting early that day, including with the union. I was not part of the union. I'm not part of the union. I am a certified staff, but I am not under the same contract as teachers or paras or administrative staff or anything. To the best of my knowledge, I'm like only one other person in my district who's a friend of mine, who's also a behavior analyst, where we are islands unto ourselves. So I didn't really have anyone going to bat for me, which is fine. I'm used to that. At the first meeting, the early morning meeting that no one knew about, representatives from different disciplines within the district were there. Social workers, speech pathologists, special ed teachers, regular ed teachers, music teachers, gym teachers, coaches, administrators, fill in the blanks. And their unions were there, their union reps. And according to the administrator that presented this information, everyone at that meeting was in agreement that this was going to be the plan going forward. And the plan going forward was all students were going to go to a distance learning model effective Monday. I'm sorry, reopening on Tuesday. Excuse me. We were going to have a snow day on Monday, and we were going to reopen for distance learning on Tuesday. And when the facilities were deemed clean enough, all of the self-contained autism complex learner classrooms were to return to a building. When that news hit, I audibly heard gasps and I witnessed people's jaws fall open. And they were thinking the exact same thing that I was thinking. You have the most needy group that requires the most hands-on physical attention, that has categorically and typically the worst personal hygiene and interfering behaviors that are very often less than sanitary, picking, spitting, pica, self-injurious behavior, so on and so forth. And those are the students that you're going to bring back during a pandemic where, again, people can be asymptomatic carriers and transmitters from 2 to 14 days after contacting the virus. People were in tears. People were angry. People were confused. People were laughing because they didn't know what else to do. And the administrators were completely caught off guard. They were under the impression that they came to a good compromise. They came to a good solution because they had an earlier meeting with, representatives from all the different departments within the district. It didn't go that well. It didn't go well at all. I came to find out that not everyone was in agreement, and this is just the consensus. So it was really concerning to me because you had all of these people that were told they had to report back to a building when their questions were being answered of, well, what do we do if we're not comfortable coming back into a building because there's a safety concern? It's like, well, this is your job. We're going to take every precaution possible. And when the question was, well, what if you can't do that and I still get sick? And it's kind of like, well, this is the decision we made. It was a circular conversation. And I knew that there were no representatives from behavior analysts there because why would there be? Because there were no behavior analyst contract or union or anything like that. So I just sat back, and I am lucky in that I'm young enough and good enough health and, relatively physically fit that I wasn't concerned for myself. But again, I was concerned for my family. I was concerned for other people. I was concerned for my coworkers. I was concerned for my friends. I was concerned for every single person we came in contact with, those coworkers that have elderly parents that have pre-existing conditions and, whatever else. My father who's got, high blood pressure, and my stepmother who's a chronic smoker. And why? Yeah, I could go and I'll be fine. But then what happens if I get sick? Or what happens if I don't show symptoms ever, but I'm a carrier? I mean, I don't know how I would deal with that. Tears, actual tears. Some people tried to stay behind, but they didn't get any different. It was, the line item was, this is what we're doing. This is the decision that was made. I didn't stick around for the second meeting because it was going to be more of the same. We had a little meeting in the lobby amongst, a cohort, and everyone was in agreement. We do not think this is a good idea. We found our administrator, our supervisor, and we sat, and, she said, I agree with you guys. I don't think she said she was the sole dissenting voice, but she said she was a dissenting voice. But obviously she was not loud enough where she was not heard, or that, the decision was made anyway, that the most needy students and the most, at-risk population were going to be the ones that had to go back into the buildings and be in close proximity to one another. So March 13th is a Friday the 13th. It's a half day. We had a half day planning for distance learning with students. I tried to prepare the students as best I could that had never accessed a Chromebook. I pulled all the Chromebooks from our program together, and we had a very short training to make sure all the students knew at least their passwords and their usernames, because some of them have never even used their school accounts, let alone used a computer. They've never even used their school account on any device. So they needed to have that information. And I just did it whatever I could. And then we had, another meeting where we tried to come up with a plan for distance learning and see what else we needed to do. I will say the district that I worked in did a fantastic job with preparing for distance learning. We received word that there was going to be a possible waiver to waive the 180-day the 180-day minimum to qualify as a school year. And typically that would need to be done by July 1st, but the waiver that you would apply for through the state, I don't remember what all the criteria were, but essentially if you had met the criteria, you were going to be able to have the days that you provided distance learning counted towards your day total. So students didn't have to physically be in school to still have it count towards a school day for the 180-day total, and they would be able to have the last day of school at June 17th. As it stands right now on the 24th of April, it's still June 17th. We got approved for the waiver, and other districts were reaching out to our district to see what we had done so they can emulate it to the best of their ability, so they could also get approved for the waiver, and they could also, be on the forefront of this distance learning stuff. We were by no means the only district that was doing that, but we were kind of leading the charge. And we did a fantastic job. We already had Chromebooks for every student, I think from 6th grade up, and we had a reserve of Chromebooks, and we had a lot of technology. We were already a Google school, so we had Google Classroom, we had Google Drive, everyone had Google email accounts. So it was a lot of professionals in the district did a fantastic job with providing training on a short period, a short time base, and getting a lot of people up and running that were previously not up and running, had never used it. No one in our program, again, the special ed transition program, 18 to 21 year olds within this district, no one had used Google Classroom before with these kids, these students. No one had even attempted it because it didn't really make sense for what we were doing. We were doing functional-based academics, things that you would do in real time. Why have you watch a video on street crossing when we can go cross a street? We didn't have to worry about generalization at that point. We're going to work on street crossing because we have access to streets. We were going to do that. Also on that day, I took my kids to see Onward in the movie theater. It was weird. It was eerie. It was like I was playing hooky from school and I went to a movie in the middle of the day, even though it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday after school. There were maybe 15 people in the entire theater, half of which were a kid's birthday party that I'm assuming was pre-scheduled and they just didn't have time to cancel it. At this point in time, social distancing was already a thing. People were already maintaining about a 6-foot distance from one another. They were not coming in close proximity to other people that they didn't know. But, and this still sticks out of my mind. I don't know if, when I'm 50 or 60 or 80 or whatever, if this is still going to stick out of my mind. But one kid, we sat in the first row. So the movie theater that we were at has reserved seating. So you pay and you get a reserved seat and you can go and sit down much like a plane. It's got a recliner, motorized recliner, and it's got a tray table that kind of swings out. We sat right on the first row of the second level. So the first row of the second level. So we had unobstructed view. There was no one really in front of us. If we wanted to, if it was a little bit shorter, we could have put our feet on the shelf that was right there. The birthday party was in our row. One kid coughed during the previews. I turned around to see who it was. And as I'm turning, I see behind me people getting up and looking down like this to see who coughed. This is 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks into this pandemic when it comes to the state of Connecticut. People were already very keyed up because at this point in time, it's a very real situation that schools are closing and distance learning is going to begin. So again, that weekend was business as usual. I was interested to see what Monday was going to hold with it being a snow day and what was going to happen in the state. Snow day was not actually a snow day. There was no snow, so we didn't get to build a snowman or anything like that. We just kind of waited with bated breath to see what was going to happen. On the 17th, distance learning began. And I'm going to take this in chunks now. The first week was crazy. I was appointed like the technology expert. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I have the most use of technology. I have I'm by no means a programmer or an IT supporter or anything like that. And this gave me such a huge amount of respect for people in IT. I will forever commiserate with the pain that you guys have to go through. I had to teach people how to move cursors. Adults, like typically developing parents of students, during this week, I had to teach them how to move cursors with the trackpad. I had to teach them how to close tabs on a browser. It was crazy to me that a person in 2020 could not have these basic technology skills. But here I was, teaching people how to do it. We were all diving headfirst into using a Google Classroom platform. The one thing that we kind of hung our hat on was this asynchronous learning. And that was, we would plan something as a program. You had your case manager, who's a special ed teacher. You would plan something and you would assign it, and there would be a due date, but there was really no due date. And you didn't have to do it live. You didn't have to sit in on a class. You didn't have to sit one-on-one with any instruction. You just had to check in with your case manager for that day, or a certified staff in some capacity, and you were present for that day. And as long as you completed the work, you completed the work. Well, what would happen if you didn't complete the work? Who cares? We didn't say that, but that's kind of like, we couldn't make these kids who had no exposure to technology, whose parents had never been, for most of them, had never been forced to be an educator in the past 18 years. These kids are, 20 years old, and some of them have been in birth to 3, and then in the system all the way since then. They haven't had to be a formal educator since they were 2 years old. But now we're asking them to be educators and mom and dad and provider and caretaker and all these things. There was a lot of hats to wear. So we were trying to make it as loosey-goosey as we could. I mean, we were assigning things to the best of, the ability of our students, but we really didn't know if they were going to be able to do any of it. And it was a learning process, and we didn't really know how much they could complete, if anything. And we weren't about to put any more pressure because this was day one. Day one was of distance learning with, again, no lead time. We didn't have time to prepare parents. We knew that this was going to happen Tuesday. We had an inkling Tuesday. By Thursday, we're being told that there's a half day the next day, and then a snow day Monday, and then they're in. We had so many questions and people being inundated with emails and text messages and so on and so forth. It was craziness. Our parents did a great job. The parents of our students did a fantastic job. They all rose to the challenge, and there were some tears and there was some yelling, but I was very impressed with the way that everyone handled it. Then at that point in time, we had not been approved for the waiver for the 180 days, but we were moving forward as though we were going to be approved. We were just like, let's move forward. Let's not wait a week and see what happens. Let's use this week to troubleshoot so we're not a week behind in the event we do get the waiver approved. So we wanted to be ahead of it. We wanted to say, like, this was our plan, and we rolled it out on the 17th. We had one snow day, and after that was distance learning, as opposed to some districts which said, we're going to take a week off, or we're going to take 2 weeks off, and we're going to get this plan in place. The students don't have to report, but the paras and the teachers do, or in some cases, nobody reported. And what are we going to do in this situation? How are we going to utilize this platform? Do we have enough computers? Do we have enough access? Do we need accounts? And so on and so forth. We were really lucky that we didn't need to do that. So that was great. We were very, very lucky in that regard. So we moved forward, not knowing if we were going to get the waiver. This might all be for naught. We could be back in 3 weeks. Who knows? But we were moving forward. We were pressing on. We were being trailblazers in this unprecedented and uncharted time. Again, if it was approved, June 17th was going to be the last day. We had an April break that was starting Good Friday, which was 4/10, and it was going to go back. It was going to run through the 20th of April. There were talks during the meetings before the lockdown, which is what I'm going to call it going forward, the distance learning, and even during this week of, can we even take the spring break? Should we take the spring break? What if we don't take the spring break and we keep doing distance learning? Because remember at this point in time, by this point in time in the town, city, state, region, country, no one's going anywhere. Hotels are shutting down, casinos are shutting down, airlines are, furloughing people, and nobody's going anywhere. Non-essential businesses are shutting down, things of that nature. Nobody's going anywhere. So if you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, what's the point of having a spring break? You might as well stay home and work so you can get out of school a week earlier. Wouldn't that be good? Take the Good Friday, which is a holiday, and then be there for the week so you can get out a week earlier. At that point in time, week 1, there was a lot of people that were on board with doing that, just kind of rolling right through the spring break and using that week and tacking it on at the end. Long story short, it didn't happen for a number of reasons. One, nobody wanted it by the time we actually got to the break. We needed a break because distance learning is exhausting from an educator perspective, especially when you have no proficiency or experience doing it in the first place. It is exhausting. Everything takes 2 to 3 times as long. I mean, I would read, if I had an hour-long training to watch in terms of a video, it would take me easily 2.5 hours to get through it. Because you also have to remember, we're not just distance learning, we're also home. We're home with our families. We're home with our kids. We're home with our pets. We're home with our spouses. We're home with our roommates. We're home with people that are distractions. They're good, lovable distractions, but they're distractions. So you could sit down and do your work and not actually accomplish anything because I gotta go change this diaper over here and the dog just peed on the floor and I gotta, I'm burning the quiche that I'm making for breakfast so that it was craziness. I mean, this is just my household. I don't make quiche or have a dog, but 4 and 2-year-olds need a lot of attention. So everyone's trying to get in the swing of things. So this first week was more or less we're slow playing it. We're trying to figure out what works the best. So again, that first week, we're all like, yeah, let's just roll through our break. By the time April 9th came, we're like, I am so happy tomorrow starts spring break. I am so happy that we don't have to think about distance learning or school. I was probably more happy to have that spring break than I would have if I was in the district. I'm like, we're not going anywhere. Let's just roll through it. Now I was like, get me out of this distance learning model. It's exhausting. I digress. The other reason that we didn't do it was because it wasn't approved. I don't even think they put it to a vote. I never saw a survey or anything like that. What we did have during this time period was our district was fantastic with communication. I worked in 3 high schools, 2 main high schools and the alternative high school. The alternative high school principal is my administrator and my supervisor. So I was getting daily updates from her. We were having daily Google Meets, video conferencing. I was getting constant emails from the other 2 principals, they call them headmasters, other 2 principals at the high schools, echoing what the superintendent was sending on a daily basis. So the superintendent would send a communication to parents and then would send a communication to staff. And they might have gone out at the exact same time. They might have been 1 minute different from one another. But I know that our staff updates always had a staff update portion and then the exact email verbatim that the parents received every single day. The communication back and forth was impeccable. You didn't always like what they said, but you knew at least that it was being said in the first place. So I really have to commend everyone for that. I realized communication is key during this situation. Again, unprecedented times, uncharted waters. No one's been through anything like this before. It's really important that we get to the bottom of what exactly is going on. And if we can't do that, at least communicate that we're trying to get all the information and give the information to the best of your ability. So again, daily or every other day, we're getting emails sent by administration. And so that first week was, again, we're just adjusting to it. We're learning curve. No one's really getting IEP objectives specifically assigned to them. No one's really getting things that are going to be for electronic program books that were created with data input. We're just trying to get everyone used to this platform, used to logging onto Google Classroom, used to going onto a Meet. Oh, that's the other thing. This first week, we didn't have permission to use video with students. We had permission for phone calls. We had permission for text messages and emails because those were existing already, but we didn't have permission for video. And we didn't know what permission was going to be necessary. Was it an opt-in? Was it an opt-out? What if I wanted to use video as an educator, but you didn't want video as a student? Was that allowed? Or did both of us have to turn our keys at the same time to launch this missile sequence? We didn't know. Because again, this had never happened before. Whenever any instruction was taking place, it was taking place in the classroom or face-to-face with a teacher or a paraprofessional or a certified staff of some sort. When the kids left and went home, we didn't do distance meets and video conferencing. It just wasn't done because if you remember at the beginning when I said that we had telehealth for ABA and even some people were late adopters due to this pandemic, that was like groundbreaking type stuff. I did an entire master's online and never once had a video conference with a teacher. It was all asynchronous. They would film a video and they would send it to me. So this is really out of necessity. We were trying to get these questions answered. Ultimately, it came down that we could use video with students. It took about 2 weeks. We could use video with students and it was an opt-out, but they also didn't have to use their video capability. So if you were using a video conferencing software, you could still participate in the Google Meet, which was our chosen platform. Couldn't use Zoom, couldn't use Doxy, couldn't use any of the other platforms that were out there. Had to use Google Meet. They did not have to have their video on. In fact, staff didn't have to have their video on. It was up to the individual. Again, it was an opt-out thing. They didn't have to sign a permission slip that said they will allow it. It was that they would sign something or would essentially opt out in the moment. They'd either not participate or they would participate without video, which is fine. So that's where we're at with Google Meet. Also, during the first 2 weeks, we didn't have paraprofessional support. Now, this is a program that I was part of that had 15 students and 11 paraprofessionals. We had a lot of one-to-ones. Now these students are home. So for the first 2 weeks, the teachers and the parents and the certified staff were the only ones that were interacting with the students. What was happening with the paraprofessionals at this time? They were figuring out amongst themselves and amongst the district and amongst their union and so on and so forth, what was going to happen with when they came back. Could they come back? The district paid them for 2 weeks. They didn't have to report to work and they were paid for 2 weeks of their time. After the 2 weeks, they were going to have an answer. They were either going to go on unemployment or they were going to come back and be employed. I don't know if it was a choice that they could make to come back or not come back, but the comeback was they were not coming into a building. They were going to have access to technology through Google. If they needed actual physical hardware technology like a computer or a laptop or something to that effect, that would attempt to be provided for them. But they were doing distance learning the same way that we were. One of the questions that was eventually answered was, can a paraprofessional be on a Google Meet video conference with a student? Normally you would say yes, absolutely, no problem. They have face-to-face interactions with the students on a daily basis. Why would that be a problem? That's a problem because you, as a paraprofessional, don't have face-to-face interactions on a consistent basis with parents. Some do. Most, especially in our program, don't. Because, again, we're drone, bird's eye view, radioactive isotopes moving about. We're out in the community. So if we stop and answer a question of a mom, we're not able to attend to the student in the community. And it's significantly more dangerous, potentially, than if we were to answer a question if they come to the school. Also, as a general policy, so that we don't give the wrong answer as a district, paraprofessionals don't generally have a lot of interaction with parents. Teachers, paraprofessionals parents, can't just walk into a school and ask to speak to a paraprofessional in private and talk with them and so on and so forth. So the free access to a paraprofessional on a Google Meet without a certified staff there to kind of mediate and play goalkeeper for any of the questions that they might not be able to answer was a question that needed to be answered. How are we going to go about doing this? And ultimately, it was left up to the discretion of the case managers for those students. Also, it was left up to the discretion of the paraprofessionals. If a para felt uncomfortable being on a Google Meet with a student without certified staff present, they didn't have to be. They could always have some sort of support. We were lucky again in that 11 paraprofessionals, 15 students, 6 certified staff, 3 teachers, an SLP, speech and language pathologist, a social worker, and a behavior analyst, all counted as certified staff. Could the students be on a Google Meet all together at once? I have no idea. But they're in social groups. Yeah, they're in social groups, social work groups and counseling groups and so on and so forth. But again, parents are present during those situations. Now, if we're doing a distance learning model, so if Johnny and Susie are in a counseling group and Johnny talks crap about Susie's mom can hear it because Susie's mom is in the room while the distance learning is happening. HIPAA, sensitive information. It was all questions that needed to be answered, and that was what was happening during these 2 weeks. Can students be on a call with other students? Can, specific for, not instruction, but specific for these types of counseling and medically sensitive situations. Can paraprofessionals be on calls with students without certified staff? Do they even want to be on calls without certified staff? Where are the paras going to go? We don't need, again, we're doing an asynchronous model. We don't need one-on-one support for the entire 7 hours. We were only providing support between the hours of 9 and 2. 7:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. was prep time. It was our time to get things situated. It was our time to get things going. From 9 until 2 is when we would be available for student concerns. So we were encouraging synchronous learning and instruction, but we were not imposing it. We were not mandating it. If you wanted help, we are here. If you don't want help, you want it to be student-driven and do it on your own, that's fine. Just get the work done, and we're going to be here to grade it and to give you feedback asynchronously. But what if you have a student that's doing all of their work between 5 and 10 o'clock at night? Because mom works until 9 to 5, and she can't do both. She can't be the single mother working and also the paraprofessional and teacher for Johnny's work. So they get their work done from 5 to 10. They're not going to have paraprofessional support, in which case the paraprofessional that was their one-to-one, they're going to be somewhere else. And because you are in a distance learning model, you're also able to do things without a commute, without the grind, as was said today in a meeting. You're more efficient in some areas and less efficient in other areas. So you can see more. You can get more accomplished. An hour of meeting with Johnny, you don't then have to travel down the road 15, 20 minutes to go see Susie. You just go boop, boop, out one, into the other meeting. So you're saving, so you can do more. You can see more in that situation. We didn't need 11 paras. So what we decided was each teacher, is going to get one paraprofessional for their caseload. Each teacher had anywhere between 4 and 5 students on their caseload. And they were going to make materials. They were going to update materials. They were going to score materials. They were going to sit in Google Meets with students. And they were going to have specific appointments for students during specific times. So if you got 4 students between the hours of 9 and 2, with a little bit of a break for lunch, you meet with Johnny at 9 o'clock from 9 to 10. You meet with Susie from 10 to 11, and so on and so forth. So your day as a paraprofessional is full. But I don't need all of the paraprofessionals. So then what happens? Well, now we give some of our paras back to the high school or to the middle school or to the elementary school where they're needed in kids that maybe have even less exposure to technology or less exposure to this distance learning model and capability. So they need a little bit more, or maybe they need less. I don't know. But we didn't need all of our paras, so some of them were loaned out to other places. Every single para that I've spoken with, whether in our program or another program, is plenty busy doing stuff. Everyone that I know that is in this model is working from 7:30 until 2 o'clock, and then some. Whether it be meetings, 4 or 5 meetings a day, half hour here, jump on a meet, have a conversation on the phone, let me show you this, I'm going to share my screen. Jump on a meet has been my favorite phrase over the course of the past couple weeks. Adam, can you help me? Let's jump on a meet. It's just easier sometimes to see somebody, and we have such little face-to-face human contact interaction aside from our families and loved ones, our immediate family, that it's great to see somebody and just talk with them that you have affinity for, and you have, maybe it's a person that you haven't even worked with this entire year, but you've seen them in the hallway and now you get to talk with them. It's just great to just check in. And everyone's doing the same thing, trying to stay home, trying to stay healthy, but it's good to just talk with people. Have some semblance of normalcy. So I talked a little bit about the emails and the communication that was back and forth. I talked about the paraprofessionals and how things were handled. There were conversations going around before that if they're not working, they shouldn't get paid. Well, they're not working because they can't work. They're not working because of pandemic. So I feel like this is an extenuating circumstance, an extenuating situation. Well, no, because if you can't work, you don't get paid. So if we're telling them that they're not able to work, then we're also not going to pay them. Well, that's kind of fucked up because these people need money. And well, that's what unemployment is for. Yeah, but remember I said before, 20% of the available workforce is now unemployed. So there's no guarantee that they're going to get enough money to live by. I mean, these people were living paycheck to paycheck before this. Our paras got paid some of the lowest in the state. And our paras, specifically in the transition program, got an extra $5 an hour because they were always out of a building. It's a great situation for our paraprofessionals. But if you then have to go on unemployment and you're making 75% of your wages, you were scraping by making 100% of your wages. So I think all of our paras were itching to get back. We also had a PD every Friday, aside from today. This Friday was the first Friday that we didn't have a PD for staff. It gave students a little bit of a break from the distance learning model because, again, remember I said, distance learning is exhausting for the learner and for the educator. You take sometimes twice as long to get something done because it's self-driven and you don't have the real-time access to raise your hand and ask a question. You have to try to figure it out yourself. You go and ask mom. You maybe Google the answer. You write an email and the teacher can't get back to you right away. So, again, it's not the best. And I always find this funny. During those first 2-3 weeks that we were doing this, we also realized that no one was getting any breaks. So students were logging on at 7:30 in the morning and they would have assignments that were assigned for them to do. And they would have to meet with this teacher and they would have to do this lecture and they would have to do this Google Hangout. And this Google Hangouts was texting and Google Meets is video. So Google Hangouts would be almost like a chat thread and then Google Meet would be the video component. And then all of a sudden 2:30 rolls around and their school day's done and they haven't gotten up out of their chair, they haven't had lunch, they haven't been able to go to the bath. I mean, it was crazy the amount of stuff that these students were having to do, and nobody realized that we were so eager to get it implemented that we didn't realize that we needed to account for breaks. Then you started to see emails about balancing, working from home and don't be sitting too much, and every 5 minutes of every hour or every 20 minutes, whatever it is, get up and take a walk so that way you're not causing harm to your legs and your back, and make sure you're sitting in an approved area that's appropriate and all these different things. But it was amazing the things that we overlooked. When you don't have the commute, you don't have the passing time, you also don't have a break. Passing time between period 1 and period 2 is a break from instruction. But again, when you can boop, boop from one to another, you don't have that break. And then when you're not there, you're not present, you're absent for the class. So it was a very interesting learning curve, again, those first couple weeks. But today was the first day that we did not have a PD. And surprisingly, some of our parents thought that there was a PD because we got them in this routine. And then we kind of pulled it back for this one day. So we had a couple of parents that weren't present today, or a couple of students that weren't present today because they were under the impression that we had a PD in place. And where we're at right now is the governor said that they're going to reassess during the break, during our spring break. The governor said that right before the spring break, the governor said that he's going to reassess May 20th. He's going to reassess the opening of the state. A friend of mine that works for Yale sent me a text today that said they are relatively sure that we are on the opposite side of the peak. We're on the downhill part, that the rate of infections, new infections, has been decreasing steadily, and we're not out of the woods, but we're in the home stretch. I personally don't think we're going to go back to school this year. I don't see how that's possible. If the governor is going to make a decision about how and when we're going to reopen the state on May 20th, we are going to have a plan that needs to be put in place that gives us a little under 4 weeks to come up with a plan. And we can't implement that plan until, at the earliest, May 21st. And then we won't know how effective it is for, again, another week or maybe even a day. Who knows? But again, May 20th is going to be the governor making an assessment for the state as a whole, for these non-essential businesses that are closed down. All right, let's open up barbershops. Okay. How many people go through a really good barbershop on a day? Let's open a massage parlor. How many people will go through a really good massage parlor on a day? A really busy massage parlor. It's nowhere close to an elementary school. It's nowhere close to a 1,500 student plus staff high school. If you open up schools, carte blanche, May 21st, you're going to have a huge rebound effect. The other thing you can't do is I'm just taking this from a high school perspective, you can't do what some other people are talking about and have a reduced occupancy in these buildings. You can't say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or in our case, we have a 4-day rotation. Days 1 and 3, 50% of the students are going to go in. And days 1 and 3. So 2 and 4, the other 50% are going to go in the building. Well, students have class every 1, 2, 3, and 4 day. Well, the next week we're going to switch. The teachers have class every day. So when are they going to be in? Are you going to have some students in the classroom and some students out of the classroom? Are you going to have the teacher in the classroom and the students out of the classroom? Or vice versa? Who knows how that's going to happen? It's going to be, I just don't see how it's going to happen. I think the best thing to do is distance learning until the end of the year. June 17th for my district. June 17th should be the day. And we should plan for the reduced population of students to come back for an extended summer school session. So normally we have 4 weeks. I think we're going to have proposed 8 weeks. So we already have a reduction in student body for summer school. So that can kind of be our slow rollout plan. And even if it's a full day, let's see what we can do during that ESY period, that 8-week extended school year. Let's see how it affects the state. Let's see how it affects other people as other non-essential businesses are opened up on a rolling basis or a slow basis. I think schools need to stay closed. And that's my prediction. My prediction is that schools are going to remain closed for the remainder of this school year. So again, my district, I do not think that I'm going back into a school until after June 17th. I mean, let's just say they follow through with what Yale says and they do June 1st. Why come back for 2 weeks? Why? You've been doing it for 2 months. You've been doing it for half of March, all of April, all of May, 2.5 months, excuse me. Why do it for just 2 weeks? Just cut your losses. All right, figure out a way to have graduation. I get it. Figure out a way to I don't know, do the award ceremonies or something to that effect. But don't open the schools. Don't have the cafeteria workers come in. Don't have the bus drivers come in. Don't have the delivery drivers come in. Don't have the teachers come in and the janitorial staff and everyone. I mean, it's just better to cut your losses and let us ride this out. We've been doing a great job and we're doing better every single week. Just keep going with it. Keep going with it and just ride it out until June 17th and start as fresh as we can after, June 1st or July 1st. I don't know what day of the week it is, but we've got that June 17th to July 1st time to plan and not have anything else on our minds, not have anything else to worry about. So that's, from an educator standpoint, that's what I've been experiencing these past few weeks. I will say that I have been incredibly impressed with the communication, with the resiliency, with the apathy, with the empathy, with everything. I didn't mean apathy, I meant empathy. With everything that all of my coworkers and compatriots and educators have shown during this time. From the first year paraprofessional to the brand new superintendents to the tenured people that are eligible for retirement at the end of this year. I mean, it's been amazing. People are forthright, honest, forthcoming, and sharing things that previously I don't think they would have. I mean, some of the people that were crying in that meeting that I told you about, where they were told that they had to go back into the district buildings with these special ed kids and students, those are people that would not have spoken up generally, but they, their backs were against a wall and they felt like they were being, I don't want to say physically threatened because no one was physically threatening them, but they saw that they were going to be put into a more than dangerous position that was completely avoidable. Nurses and doctors, it's not avoidable in a lot of those situations. They have to be put in those situations, and that's what it calls for. But an educator does not need to be put in that situation. Say what you will about those people that say we're going to arm teachers. Mandating someone to be put into a dangerous situation that they were not previously in and kind of grandfathering them in and now making it a job requirement is not fair. You can't completely change the job requirement after these people have been doing what they've been doing for however long it's been, 10, 15, 20 years, 10, 15, 20 months, it doesn't matter. You know what a teacher is. What you're asking of them is not a teacher. And it's not even in the realm of fair to ask them to do that. So I'm very happy that the district walked that back after I would only imagine the second meeting was very similar to the first meeting that I was in that they shared that they do not feel comfortable. They do not feel like this is fair. They do not feel supported. They feel like it's unsafe and so on and so forth. And I don't think there was any amount of money you could have thrown at those people that were the dissenting voices to make them come in and be happy about it. So other people may have different opinions, might have different experiences. This is just mine in the state of Connecticut. I welcome any comments, thoughts, criticisms, feedback. Share your own experiences. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is not rated for kids. I swear a bunch. I didn't swear too much here, but write it in the comment section. What is your opinion on how everything is going from your perspective? Maybe you're not an educator. Maybe you're a coal miner. Maybe you're a dairy delivery person. Maybe you're a mail carrier. Maybe you're a essential worker that works in a hospital that's not a doctor or a nurse. Maybe you're a janitorial staff. Maybe you're a radiologist, and who knows what you're doing, but write your perspective. And honestly, I would love to talk to people that have different perspectives than me. I would love to talk to people that have had different experiences. I would love to answer any and all questions that you have that maybe I didn't address here. And I think the next episode might be more of some facts about the state of the state that I'm in during this pandemic, and then also my opinion on things. Maybe I'll wax poetic on some of the, hot button issues as it pertains to the pandemic, whether it be, I'm not a political person. I don't really get involved in politics. I really prefer to deal in facts, and those generally don't coincide with one another. Politics and facts are kind of anathema. So it don't really appeal to me. So it might be politically based just because it's a political figure, but it's mostly going to be factual. There are some crazy stories coming out about this time, some memes that are coming out at this time that I think if we look back in 5, 10, or 15 years that we're not really going to remember them. But if someone were to jog your memory, like, oh my God, I remember that. It's so crazy. But please share your experiences. Tell me what you thought of this. Tell me what you think of this. Tell me what you think is going on right now. If you believe it, if you don't believe it, if you saw it coming, if you didn't see it coming, whatever it is. Again, probably the next one is going to be a little bit more of an opinion piece specific to this pandemic and how it's affecting my life and the lives of those that are around me. But I would be remiss if I did not leave with a bit of advice, and this is right off the top of my head. There's a quote that I'm seeing thrown around a lot now, and it's so applicable in more than just this situation that it bears repeating and tattooing on the inside of your eyelids that you see it when you close your eyes at night or every time you blink. Your personal liberties stop when they harm someone else. Your choice as an adult, I'm only talking to adults right now because unfortunately children don't have a lot of choices. They have to do what they're told, whether it be by their parents or their guardians or other adults in authoritative positions. As an adult, I don't have the right, this is my belief, I don't have the right to tell you what you can and can't do. I don't have the right to tell you what you can and can't drink. I don't have the right to tell you what you can and can't smoke, what you can and can't do, put, or perform with your body. I do not have that right. It is not up to me to tell you what you should do if it only affects you. That's the line. The line is, if what you do only affects you, great. That's the do you, man. Lady, do whatever you want. Smoke whatever you want, drink whatever you want, who cares? But if what you do affects someone else negatively or hurts them in some way, that's when I have a problem with it. So take a look at yourself. Take a look at your actions. And if they really, truly benefit you or only harm you, then that's fine. But if you have the potential to hurt somebody else or cause somebody else pain or suffering or discomfort, just give it a second look. There are some protests that are going on right now at state capitals, at places of business, at governments that are irresponsible at best. I have no problem with people protesting. I have no problem with people protesting with guns. Have an AK-47 slung over your shoulder. As long as you are legally allowed to carry that in public in the state that you live in, or the town or the city or the municipality that you live in, all for it, man. Just do it. As soon as you pick that weapon up and start to gesture violently and menacingly at another person, you've then committed a crime. It's not a show of force until you show the force. Okay? So you can protest, but again, do it safely. Wear a mask. Maintain an appropriate social distance. Don't be elbow to elbow with somebody because you don't know what they have. Asymptomatic for 2 to 14 days. Can still be passing things on when you're an asymptomatic carrier of this virus. So you're arm in arm with your brother or your sister that's protesting. Fine. You protest. just do it apart from one another. Because then, you know what's going to happen? You're not going to stay arm in arm linked up for the next 2 to 14 days. You're going to go off and have your life. You're going to go see your brother, your sister, your mother, your daughter, your son, your grandmother that you live with and you're in close proximity with. And they're going to go and talk to somebody else and touch somebody else, possibly, as long as you're not maintaining these social distancing requirements. That's specific to this situation right now. But it applies in so many other ways. Your personal liberties end when they affect negatively the life and well-being and health and wellness of somebody else. I'm sorry, they just do. And I'm not talking about they get offended. I'm not talking about they get their feelings hurt. Free speech is free speech until it's not. I can say whatever I want about a person, so long as I don't threaten them, so long as I don't break any existing laws. I can call them every racial, ethnic, homophobic, transphobic, cisphobic, religiphobic, whatever you want, every name in the book. And that's fine. It's a shitty thing to do, but it's fine in the eyes of the law. As soon as I say, you know that wonderful person over there? I'm going to kill them. That's worse than calling the person a racist slur and saying that you're going to give them a high five. As far as I'm concerned. If you threaten somebody else, you're breaking the law. If you call them a shitty name, you're just a shitty person. So again, your personal liberties end when they negatively affect someone else. Actually negatively affect them. Everyone's a little bit too soft right now. We'll probably get into that in another podcast. My personal feeling is offense, if you get offended, if you get your feelings hurt, okay, great. When you actually cause someone physical harm or you're berating them repeatedly when they're asking you to stop, you're then harassing them. You see how that's not free speech anymore? And yes, you do have a right to assemble, but your right to assemble could possibly, in this situation right now with the pandemic, could possibly affect more people. Yeah, you have religious freedom. You can practice whatever religion you want. But if your religion says that you don't need to get vaccinated, that you don't need to get vaccinated, and you choose to do that, that's fine. But then also realize that you don't have the right to then come into a public school and possibly infect other people. You don't have the right to go to Disney World. At that point, Disney World is not a right, it's a privilege. You have the privilege of going by having enough money. You have the privilege of going because they allow you in. They're private, it's private property. It's not a state park or a national, preserve. So if you opt out of these certain things, that's fine. That's your right. You don't have to do it. But then realize you don't get all these other things that come along with it. If you don't play by the rules, you can't play the game. I personally think it's a shitty thing that professional athletes are drug tested for marijuana. I don't think they should be drug tested for anything aside from something that's performance enhancing. And honestly, I don't really give a shit about performance enhancing unless it's in a way that it can negatively affect someone and cause them physical harm, like football or hockey or mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu or anything. If you want to take roids and run, go do it, man. I don't give a shit. You're not hurting anybody, again, but yourself. More on that later. But if you want to do something and it affects somebody else, that's when I have a problem with it. So again, to be a broken record, the last part of this podcast, your personal liberties end when they cause pain, actual pain, physical pain, emotional pain. Pain. One time is not pain. If I say you're a piece of shit, that sucks to hear, but it's not causing you pain. I might be the 50th person that's told you you're a piece of shit in your life, and you might be sick and tired of hearing it, and it might be the straw that broke the camel's back, but how the hell am I supposed to know that? Again, doesn't make me not a shitty person, but it doesn't mean that I don't have a right to say it. I'm not going to keep repeatedly calling you a shitty person because you're telling me to stop, then I'm harassing you, but your personal liberties end when they cause pain or put someone else at risk. Okay? Thank you so much for watching. Second episode coming on an hour and a half. Crazy bananas. Hopefully there's going to be a lot more. As my buddy Owen says, we're going to get to 1,000. Maybe we're going to get to 10,000. I have no idea. I have no idea how often they're going to happen. I have no idea how long until the next one, but I appreciate I appreciate everyone that has watched and will watch, and take care. Come here.